At least 6 are dead in a Buffalo, New York explosion. Hello, I'm Gwen Summers. A propane gas explosion in an old residential area of downtown Buffalo leveled 7 buildings Tuesday night. At least 2 of the dead are believed to be firefighters. And officials at 3 area hospitals count more than 50 people injured. The blast came just as firemen arrived on the scene to investigate a report of a gas leak. And in Houston, fire officials are describing a 4-alarm chemical plant fire as very, very dangerous. The fire began late in the afternoon and sent flames more than 100 feet into the air. No injuries are reported, but one shopping mall was evacuated when fumes from the fire began spreading over nearby areas. President Reagan says he accepts full responsibility for the terrorist attack on U.S. Marines in Beirut that killed 241 American servicemen. The president announced his decision yesterday just before flying to California with Mrs. Reagan for New Year's festivities. Mr. Reagan's comments came in response to a Pentagon report critical of military commanders' handling of the Beirut situation. The roadshow for U.S. troops in Lebanon is the most exciting one he's ever done. The 80-year-old comedian returned home Tuesday aboard a military transport plane. Hope says the men appreciate the cards, gifts, and general support they're getting from people back home. Round-the-clock work is underway in Florida and Texas in an effort to save millions of dollars in citrus following a 2-day freeze. And Florida vegetable growers are calling the weather a disaster with losses of 75%. The losses are expected to reach $30 million. In Texas, citrus growers expect losses of more than $30 million. But according to CNN's Gary Schweitzer, fruit isn't the only thing to suffer in Texas from the record cold snap.
These have not been happy holidays for the water crews in Houston, Galveston, Fort Worth, Dallas, and its suburbs of Highland Park and University Park. Water pipes aren't sunk as deep in Texas as they are in the north, so extended freeze periods make sunken pipes brittle after a few days. Broken water pipes in Dallas are in the thousands, keeping water department workers on the job.
This is the worst I've seen. I've been here 15 years and we haven't experienced this badly before.
Several sections of Fort Worth are without water after over 500 water main bursts. Residents are storing water in anything that will hold it.
I've collected all I can, all the thermoses and jugs I have, filled them up with water, and I'll just use them sparingly.
University Park has had more than 10 water main breaks per square mile. If everyone there weren't watching the Dallas Cowboys lose yesterday, the televised bulletin to conserve water may have been missed by many, and the crisis would have been worse. So Police and Fire Chief Dave Beitelman says the televised Cowboy loss saved the day.
Seeing the crawl come across the bottom of the screen had a tremendous impact.
While 20% of the wealthy area's residents have been inconvenienced by the lack of water, it could have been much worse if even one major fire had forced the city to use dwindling supplies.
We could really not have fought a fire. We just have to take what we had in the engines and maybe keep some of the other houses from being involved too.
And you're not out of the woods yet?
Not out of the woods. We hope in the next 36 hours or so that we'll be back up to normal operation.
Gary Schweitzer, CNN, Dallas.
Waterlogged homes to move out ahead of tonight's expected freeze.
What began as water only on sidewalks and in yards soon turned into water on the floors of homes, like here along North Louisiana Street. And that's what residents say will set this flood above many of the others in University City. The fact that by mid-afternoon the high water had not started to recede. Just the opposite happened.
The water this morning is coming up instead of going down. It's not as bad as it was, but it's bad enough with these cars going by here.
Throughout most of North Kenner, older residents claimed the flood was not as bad as the one earlier this year, but others said it was the worst they've seen. One point all residents agreed on was that too many joyriders were causing waves that threatened even more homes.
I heard a police car a while ago telling them to slow down. That's not the answer. The answer is stop them. Let's keep them out. Let's don't let them move. You can see for yourself, a lot of people just joyriding through here.
Kenner Mayor Aaron Broussard says those who do not have water in their homes should stay at home and try not to use any water at all, since supplies and pressure are already low. Mike Sanders, News Center 6.
Getting to work for thousands of Metairie residents this morning was an impossibility. Richard Angelico has their story.
By daylight, Jefferson Parish was underwater from Clearview to Loyola and from the interstate to the lake. Streets, highways, and canals were covered. On Veterans Highway, people going to work found the high waters more than their automobiles could cope with. Cars by the hundreds were stalled or flooded, and drivers simply walked away waiting for the waters to recede. Some, not familiar with Veterans Highway, turned onto what they thought was a street and found a canal instead. This man escaped from his truck as it sank, then spent most of the morning diving to attach a tow chain. After hours of trying, he finally succeeded, but his new truck was a total loss. By noon, the pumps finally began working, and the water level started to drop rapidly. Richard Angelico, News Center 6.
Flooding in Jefferson Parish was a double whammy of sorts for residents who earlier this week couldn't even get drinking water into their sinks because of low water pressure. Today, they got too much of it. Making matters worse, the huge drainage pumps that are supposed to remove rainwater failed because there wasn't enough water pressure to prime the pumps. Pierre Degree has that story.
Now, if we can keep those pumps operating without any problems, we are going to get that water off of the streets by darkness.
When it floods in Jefferson Parish, there are few guarantees. Parish officials and thousands of residents found that out again today. Officials say the East Bank's pumping capacity was at less than 50%. Critical pipes that keep two pumps working froze and burst. Pumps were not started until this afternoon. At pumping station number 2, water pressure was too low for one of the largest pumps on the East Bank to operate properly. It was not turned on until this morning. Parish officials, however, defended their handling of the situation.
I was never trying to hide anything from the people of Jefferson Parish.
You think the people are going to buy this about Mother Nature and an act of God?
Well, what the hell else can we do if they had the freeze there that caused the temperature to go to what it was, the worst in 80 years, and the news media is telling us this, and then we come up there and we don't have water pressure, which was evident yesterday when buildings had to close down. We had to close this building down. We didn't get the pressure up there. We had to get an engine out there to generate pressure. What else can I tell them?
The way you're implying that we were late in letting the public know, well, and when 5 inches of rainfall falls in 3.5 to 4 hours, you don't have to inform the public. They'll see the water coming over those streets in a hurry. They'll see it approaching their houses.
And a scary sight that is indeed, as the water spilled over the canal along West Esplanade and crept toward houses. People were visibly angry and wondered why New Orleans remained dry while their parish was left crippled. Pierre Degree, News Center 6.
At Charity Hospital, doctors and nurses in the emergency room used flashlights to work on patients after a power failure caused a partial blackout and the emergency generator failed. Power was maintained, however, by 2 backup generators. The cause of the blackout was being checked, but Charity nonetheless canceled elective surgery and asked that people not come in for non-emergency medical treatment. The hospital also had low water pressure, the same problem affecting the rest of the city. Charity's 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors had no water, and patients were transferred to other areas without problems.
4 to 6 inches of rain drenched our area last night. John Quaintance looks at the flood of troubles left behind by the storm.
The overnight storm that hit the New Orleans metro area was not unexpected, but few were prepared for its ferocity. For 5 hours, the wind-driven rain fell, and when it had ended, it left behind a situation all too familiar to water-weary residents. In Jefferson Parish, standing water made many major thoroughfares impassable. In Kenner, water made living in several homes impossible. Across the lake in Slidell, it wasn't a fit night for man nor beast. Tornadoes were reported in both Slidell and southward in Avondale. The only reported damage, downed trees and metal sheds. Avondale, in fact, was the only West Bank area to report any weather and flooding-related problems. At daylight, the extent of the still rising water could better be assessed. Drainage canals in East Jefferson overflowed as pumping station crews worked furiously to get the monster pumps into operation. The normal rush hour traffic into New Orleans was virtually nil, and Kenner officials were asking residents in the hardest-hit northern section of that city to stay at home. Many did, some did not, others probably wish they had.